I-28 female had a stillbirth 5 weeks ago. My sister gave birth to a healthy baby boy 4 weeks ago. After my stillbirth, I was producing milk and pumping, and my sister could not breastfeed after her son was born. Formula shortage was awful, and I was literally throwing my milk away. So I offered it to my sister and she gladly accepted. I was advised by the doctors to pump for 3 weeks after the stillbirth to prevent problems for me, and then stop. Otherwise, I'd just keep producing milk. Due to the formula shortage, I've been pumping for 5 weeks now, to give them milk to my sister. Now that there's more formula in stock and she's been able to go buy it, I told her I'll stop pumping. She told me her son has stomach problems after the formula and asked me just to keep pumping. I told her I emotionally cannot handle it any longer. She said I'm being selfish and she already has to feed her son by a bottle because, well, she had first suggested I just nurse him on his daily feedings at least. We live next door, but I refused. I told her I'm sorry, I can pump for a few more days so she can put some in the freezer and have some backup until she finds a better formula. But she said breast milk is the healthiest and I should just help her out. She called me a selfish a-hole and said that I am the embodiment of a misery loves company. My mother feels I should help my own sister out. My husband said my sister is way out of line. I feel really awful because I could still help her out and I know she needs it. So, I used to work as a cashier in a supermarket. This story took place on my 4th day of work there, and my 2nd day working at a cash on my own without a supervisor. Yes, I had only 2 days of training. I'm sure most of you will figure out in which country I live from the following explanation. It'll become relevant later. Supermarkets in my country are a zoo on a regular day. However, Thursdays and Fridays are absolute mayhem, and it's a special kind of hell. Fridays, the store closes 2 hours before sundown, as do most stores in this country. During winter, this means around 1400, and in summer, closer to 1630. People get crazy on Fridays trying to get all their shopping done and get home in time to cook dinner. If you can avoid this time coming to the store, please do so at all costs. I always told people after this day, the reason Thursdays are hell is because we get all the customers who don't want to come here on Friday. Now, this was early on an evening on Thursday, at a time where the store is absolutely jam-packed. We had 10 checkout lines open and every line had at least 6 to 7 people. Basically, if you're stuck with a slow cashier, there's nowhere else to go unless you have 10 items or less. Everything's going well until I get a customer with 2 shopping carts full of items, mostly non-perishable items, and these are the very large carts you find in big stores in the US, like Walmart. I found out later he buys this for a community center in his neighborhood, and he fills up their pantry twice a year. Nice guy. He greeted me very politely, then said the most dreaded words I could hear all night. This will be a delivery. Just a quick break from the story to explain what this dreadedness was. When we get a delivery, the cashier would call a helper from the store to bag the groceries. Usually people do their own bagging. The bag would then be placed in plastic containers and containers would then be placed on top of each other and taken to the back refrigerator until delivery. A regular delivery is usually between 3 to 5 crates. Each crate has a number, which then I have to input all of them into the computer, along with correct delivery address, phone number, and a printout with the receipt and place copies in the crates. Even for a small delivery, this always takes extra time. Okay, back to the story. This guy has 2 full carts and wants to do a delivery. I say sure, no problem. Then I turn to everyone else in line and let them know that this is a delivery. It's going to take just a bit longer than usual, and I apologize for any delay this may cause. We always do this so customers will be aware of the delay, and can move to another cache if they are in a hurry. This is when the whole line groans simultaneously. I don't blame them. There was nowhere else to go, and I could see every one of them cranking their necks to check out other lines, and they all decide to stay. So, I start scanning as fast as I can. I'm pretty good with numbers, so even though it's my 4th day, I remember many of the codes and things are moving rather quickly. I get to a point where the bagger can't keep up all the items, and the area to the left of me where I placed all the scan items is just a mountain of cans and bag of chips and whatnot. I can't even scan another item because they're following back on my scale. At this point, I stop and ask if he wants help bagging. The customer and the bagger are both appreciative, and I help them bag just for a few minutes. Just enough to clear some space so I can continue scanning. This happens every few minutes. It gets full, I stop to help, clear some space, then keep scanning. This is where the Karen comes into play. She's maybe in her 40s, long brown hair, and looks nothing like a Karen. Except for the whole way she's standing, with one hand on a hip that extends so far to the side, I wasn't even sure how she's still standing. She's in my line, about 5 to 6 people in front of her still. This is the conversation that followed.
Hello, what are you doing?
Me not answering because I did not think she was talking to me, and I keep scanning.
Excuse me, what kind of cashier are you? Why aren't you doing your job? Stop being lazy and do your job.
She's screaming at me now. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm just trying to...
That's not your job. You're a cashier. Do your job. Do your job.
I realize now, after reading so many stories online, that this would have been a perfect time or a chance for some malicious compliance. I'm sure some of you hope that I did just what Karen wanted. Too bad I did not know about it then, or that it was only my 4th day on the job. That's not what happened. Although I dream sometimes that I did just that. Sit back and sip my coffee until the space cleared for more scanned items. You know, be a cashier next time. I continue to say, I'm just helping to move things faster. If this is a problem or you're in a hurry, feel free to move to another line. I'm sure another cashier will be more than happy to serve you. I may sound like I'm the a-hole with this line, but I said it really nice and not sarcastic. Obviously, it did not help. Karen, not listening, and having none of it, says,
Just do your damn job. You're a cashier. What is wrong with you? Are you stupid? Should you be fired?
I stop listening at this point and don't answer, as I'm still helping to bag and scan as fast as possible, knowing it's not going to help anyways. However, I see one of my managers, let's call him Joe. Joe walks up to Karen. Joe's great, by the way, always helping the workers.
What seems to be the problem?
Your cashier is awful. She's lazy and she's not doing her job. You should fire her. Tell her to do her job. She's not doing it.
She repeated that a few more times like a broken record. Joe looks over at me for a second, understands exactly what's happening, turns to Karen and says,
Can't you see she's just trying to help? She's trying to make things go faster.
Now, Karen starts screaming words, I'm assuming, but I couldn't really make them out. She was practically foaming at the mouth. Joe tries to calm her down by explaining how me bagging items is actually helping, and this makes Karen even more irate, if you can believe it. Spit flying from her mouth, arms flailing, screaming like a banshee. Suddenly, I notice an older woman, nice old lady, must have been around 80 or something, trying to get Karen's attention by tapping her on the shoulder. It takes a few tries, but she finally gets her attention and spins her around by her shoulder.
Hey, Karen! Karen, excuse me, Karen. What? Your daughter's crying.
This is when the entire store seemed to have stopped talking all at once, like someone pressed a mute and turned off the volume. The sea of people in front of me parts a bit, and we all look down to see a little girl, who could not have been older than 4, clutching her mother's thighs, bawling her eyes out, snot coming out of everywhere and hyperventilating. This girl was terrified. I can't blame her. Seeing her mother going off like that must have been terrifying. And she has no idea what's happening. She's in a huge store where she knows no one, and she's practically invisible. The silence lasted an entire 2 seconds, because that's when Karen started yelling at Joe.
Look what you did. You and your stupid, lazy cashier made my daughter cry.
And a bunch of other crazy sounds that were perhaps supposed to be words. Things happened in slow motion for the next few seconds. She starts to swing towards Joe. Joe's not a big guy, but he's bigger than Karen. That's for sure. And he's not easily intimidated. It's not his first Karen. She would have decked him right in the face if the old lady had not grabbed her in her bear hug to stop her. Yes, she did. And I had to pick up my jaw off the floor. At that point, other customers got involved trying to peel off the older lady from Karen and stop Karen from trying to kill Joe, and from Joe trying to kill Karen because she was fuming by then. At this point, I saw mall security storm the castle. Our store was inside a mall, and the sea of people just surround Karen, and I couldn't really see much anymore. Kind of like a football player when there's a fumble and they just jump on the ball. By the sounds of yelling and getting further and further away, I figured Karen was being led either to the back office or to the mall security office, aka mall jail. This entire time this is happening, I'm still bagging and scanning items. I'm about halfway through the customer's purchase. I finish up with him with no more problems. He was very nice and thanked me profusely for helping with the bags, even though technically it wasn't part of my job. He said I was the fastest and nicest cashier he's ever had the pleasure of meeting. I was just happy to help. No one else in my line complained, and I actually got compliments from people about keeping my composure. Apparently, many cashiers in my country think it's okay to yell at customers just because of plain nastiness. I worked in customer service for many years prior, and I have never yelled at customers even if they deserved it. Once the rush died down a bit, I went for a break. I met another employee in the back room, and I started to tell him what just happened. And he cut me off and said, "She was yelling at you?" I heard that. Well, everyone heard that, but I had no idea what was happening. He told me police was called and Karen got escorted out of the store and the mall in handcuffs. I filled him in on everything, and we spent the next 30 minutes laughing. I don't know what happened with the child. I'm assuming they called another family to pick her up. I also don't know what happened with Karen after that, since I ended up working there for another year and never saw her. Hopefully, she learned to do her grocery shopping on Tuesday or Wednesday, or was possibly in prison. I don't know. This was the first Karen I ever had the displeasure of meeting, while working there at least, but definitely not the last. To those of you who read the entire story, thanks for sticking around through the end. I hope it was worth it and you got some sense of pleasure or justice from the result. I've been married to my husband for a long time. We have kids, a house, and pets together. We have an active sex life, we go on dates often, and share a lot of the same hobbies. Today, he's at a pool party with our oldest son. I took our youngest to the water park in town where I ran into one of the mothers I know. We started talking and she mentioned at one point that it had been so nice to meet my husband's younger sister last week and asked if she was my sister or his. I replied that neither one of us has a sister and asked her what the woman looked like. She said she was young and petite with dark hair. I only have a much younger brother who has red hair, and he has a brother who's over 6 feet, so neither one of us have a sibling or who could be confused for a sister. He does not have any cousins, and I do, but he's not close to any of them. I'm freaking out because obviously the first thing my mind goes to is he's cheating. I remember him going to the park last week, and he never made any mention of meeting up with anyone or hanging out there with anyone else. My youngest son isn't old enough to tell me. I can't get through to him because his phone isn't on him since they're at the pool. So now I'm just here freaking out because my mind is going wild. Update. When he got home with our son, I simply said, "Trish said you ran into you at the park. She said you were with someone. Introduced as your sister. Who was it?" I knew something was up because he was just silent and he did not say anything. Then he just said,
"Okay, we need to talk. Do you want to do this now or later?"
Obviously, I said now, so he told the boys to go play downstairs. He admitted he had been planning on leaving me for, quote, a while, but he had wanted to wait for the right time to do it. He said he had met someone else who he had feelings for. He met her last year and things happened slowly. He said he never cheated on me physically, but there were a lot of times that he was doing work when he was really texting her or going into his office to FaceTime her. And they would also meet up sometimes. I asked him why he felt okay bringing our son around this person, and he said it was because our son already knew her, which is when I found out that, quote, his little sister and person he's leaving me for is our son's daycare teacher. My husband is the one who drops off every morning, so I guess that's how they met. I should have guessed something was up when he began volunteering to go pick him up as well. He seemed apologetic and kept repeating that he never did anything physical and that he wanted to remain civil for the kids. I still haven't fully processed any of this. He's living in the basement apartment until we get things figured out.